All right, we're back. It's COMP123, the summer 2016 semester, week 1, part 4 of our broadcast. And we just finished making our silly, it's kind of silly little experiment here, with an additional method. We got an extra method down here, output string to console method, right? How do I test this method? And what does it test anyway? Remember, we want to do red, green, refactor. That's the way we do our methods, right? So if I go back to a solution, right? Notice that there's only one project. I need to make a test project now, right? This project is this is our main application. But we can add an additional project by clicking on the solution and clicking right-click, add new project. When I add my new project, it's going to ask me what kind of project do I want to add. And notice I can add another Visual C# application project. I don't want to. I want to go down to where it says test. So under C# there's a test section. I want to click on unit test project. Okay. I got to be very careful of what I'm doing. I can have multiple methods within my project, right? Multiple methods. And because I'm doing COMP123, S2016 lesson 1B, we're going to call this project lesson 1 test. Okay, make it nice and easy, test project. So that's what it's going to be called. We have to name the project so it's not just unit test project, right? We'll call this lesson 1 test project. Okay, and then click OK. So my project is called lesson 1 test project. Okay, this is what this is. I've got my project that actually is my application. This is just a test. So it doesn't really when I do my app, my full app, eventually in the future, this doesn't go with, this is just for me, for testing. By the way, what I'm going to try and do this semester is your test will be included in your assignment. So I'll give you a template. Here's your test. You run your test. If it fails, something's not right with your assignment. Right? That's what's going to happen because I'm going to ask you to do stuff first. So your test is going to be made first, and then you're going to make your methods and everything else from the test. Okay, just be aware of that. It's coming. I can't get there yet, right? The only thing I can do is start doing like this. So I know in my test, right? It says lesson 1 test project. I have a unit test 1.cs. I can have many CS files here and split this off to kind of handle more than one method, right? Right now I have this class. And I want to kind of access to methods and classes in my COMP123 S2016 lesson 1B project, right? Right now, I don't have access. This test has no access to this project. I've got to give it access. And the way to do that is to create a reference by right-clicking on my project and clicking Add Reference. So I don't have access to my actual application unless I add reference. Okay, click Add Reference. It's going to pull up my solution, under my solution. Now for Visual Studio 2013, you have to click in here and make sure you click under Projects, Solution, and then there's going to be this little button here that says COMP123 S2016 Lesson 1B. You have to click this button. If you don't click this check mark, it won't connect. Then click OK. What does this do? Inside my references now, you'll see COMP123 S2016 Lesson 1B inside the references of my test project, not the references of my core project. This is like my main project, if you will, right? I didn't click on this one to add a reference. If I tried to add a reference here to my other project, it would become a cyclical reference. I don't want that. I only create a reference towards my main project for my test project. Okay, that's what I did here. All right, that's one. Second thing is unit test is not descriptive, right? Unit test 1 as my class name is not descriptive. I'm going to call this class name the same as my project name. It's going to be called lesson 1 test lesson 1 unit test. All right, so right click, and I'm going to rename down here my file. It's going to be called lesson 1 unit test. I press enter. What it's going to do, it's going to ask you, do you want to rename everything else here in your document? And the answer is yes. Lesson 1 unit test, which makes sense. So my class name and I'll talk about what class, almost like a container, this lesson 1 unit test is referring to testing this lesson. That's what I'm doing. I have to make it so that they're connected somehow, even though they're not truly connected. Okay, cool. So I've got this test method 1. Test method 1 also needs to be renamed. It doesn't make any sense right now. I want to make a test method to test what? The method that I'm testing, which is, if I go back to my program.cs file, this output string to console method. Test. You hear what I said? Console string to output method test. Right? Copy this. Go back over here. And I'm going to kind of copy it before the test method. So I'm going to kind of do one of these. Control V. It sounds long, right? But it's okay because output string to console test method is very descriptive, right? It tells you what I'm testing, right? Okay. So remember, what are the 3 things? This is going to be on your test next week because we talked about this last day, right? What are the 3 things that we do inside of our method to start initiating a test? I want to set up 3 things that I do. Every single time I do it, I create a test, a unit test. What are they? It starts with, all of them start with A's. No. Arrange, act, assert. Those are the 3 things you need to do, right? So I'm going to kind of put some comments in here to that effect, right? So here's my arrange section, where I arrange some variables locally, right? Or objects, properties, whatever you want. Here's my act section, where I pull in the data from the original method, right? And here's my assert, where I do my test, okay? That's the three parts of my test that I'm doing. Okay, so in my arrange, I've got to think about what I'm doing. I'm testing my outputs to local, to console test method. This method requires 2 parameters, right? A string and a Boolean. I need those 2 parameters in my arrange. So here's a string, right? And the string is going to be my output string. I'm going to call it output string here too, right? And I'm also going to make a Boolean, which has new line, matching what the strings are, what the parameters are, pretty much from the method. I know about these 2 things. Now think about doing it the other way around. Remember I said test-driven development, not unit testing. Test-driven development means we don't write our methods, we write our tests first. Here's our requirements, write my test, then make the method. That's a totally different way of thinking than what we've been doing, right? So, okay, we're going to get there. I don't expect you to get to that thinking yet, all right? All right, let's do the next piece. So the next thing is, and I might need some more things to arrange, okay? The next piece is act. So I need to get an output string. I need to get the result, right? And that's another thing I need to do in my arrange, right? Here's my result. My result is going to be a string, right? Or I can maybe just put just result. It's fine too. There we go. Right, so my string is a result. That's what it's called. I also need to know what my expected result is. The result, actual result, and expected result. Maybe I call this actual result for you. I'm just going to try and make it clearer for you. Here's my actual result. And there's another thing called expected result. Right? These are 2 things that I'm going to get. A lot of things that I'm arranging here, but you'll see what I'm doing. The reason why I'm getting all these curly underlines that are green is like it's saying, Visual Studio saying, just a refresher, hey Tom, you haven't used these things. Why are you making variables you're not using? Right? Not yet. Here's my first one. I'm going to get my actual result is going to be equal to, and here's where it gets funky, right? I want to call my method, which is output string to console. Now, I have to access it some way, right? How do I access this method? I'm going to have a problem, right? And for now, let's make it fail, right? I know I'm going to make this fail. So I'm going to put output string to console like this first. Output string console. Don't let Visual Studio kill you with this method here. See how it says it's giving you this? Well, it's because my method is called output string to console method. Be careful. If you don't want the code hinting, what do you press to avoid IntelliSense? You know? Escape. Right? And then I want to pass in, don't worry about the error right now. I want to have my error. I've passed in my output string, and I pass in has new line. There's my has new line. It's all errors right now. Don't worry about that because they don't exist yet. Okay, this is my actual result. And then in my assert, right? I'm just going to hide this for a second so you can see a little bit more clearly. In my assert, I'm going to use the assert keyword, right? And I want to do R equal. I want to check that the expected results, I can type in expected results, which is this one, Tom, is equal to the actual results. I can't run this thing because I got a bunch of errors yet. So what's my expected result? Enter your name, right? Let's make it so that is equal to enter name. That's wrong, right? Remember, we want to fail first, right? So this is my expected result. My actual result is here, but I can't connect to this at all. Here's my output string. My output string is equal to the right one, which is enter username. That's the right output string, right? My has new line, right, is going to be equal. We're not testing that one. It's going to be equal to true or false, we're saying. Sorry. And my actual result I'm going to get from this is the only piece that's empty, right? How do I connect to this one, right? If I click control dot, try clicking control dot here for a second, control and dot, sometimes it'll generate, it says generate the method. That's not what I want. What I really want is to connect somehow to my program, but I have a problem. My program by default, if I go all the way to the top, right, class program is not public. So I need to make it public. Let's do that. Okay. If I don't make my class program public, right, then I have a problem. All right. All right. And the next piece is I'm going to talk like this. I'm going to hit my namespace COMP123 S2016 blah 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 dot the program, which is the class, dot, it's going to be really long, right? The method name, which is my output string to console. That's how I access this method, because first I got to go to my namespace. Think about the namespace as the folder. I got to go to the folder first, then I got to go to the other folder, which is my program, my class. Then I go to the other folder inside that one, which is the file, right? And I use the dot accessor method to do that. So let's put that in correct order. So it's, notice that my namespace for this test is less than one test project. It's not correct. And if I want to look at the test if I want to do it properly, it looks like this. So if I start typing COMP123, look, this is my namespace. It comes up. So this is the namespace that I want, right? Dot program. And then I'm just going to join these two things with a dot. And if everything goes well, then I'm going to have output string to console. Hey, here's a problem, right? It says output string to console has a problem. It says program does not contain a definition for output string to console. You know why? Because I spelled it wrong. And I might still have spelled it wrong. Let's see if I copy this thing here, just because I'm finger typing errors, right? This is part of the test, right? So now it's right, but it says program output string to console bool is inaccessible due to its protection level. Okay, so what do I need to do here? This is private. Is private accessible outside of my class? This is a lesson for you guys. The answer is no. We're going to talk about this a couple weeks from now, right? But understand that there's 3 access modifier levels you should know: public, private, and protected. We'll talk about what those 3 things are. I need to make this public in order for me to access, have it accessible. Okay. Save. And go back here, and when I save this one, you notice that the error goes away. Right? Now I have access to it. That's a long way of doing it. COMP123S, program, blah, right? How can I save this to make it even easier? Is there a way to do it? Well, guess what it does? I can make a using method, a using and stuff here that allows me to use COMP123 S2016 lesson 1B so that I don't have to go in here and type in all this little big line here. How do I do that? Well, I can make a new using statement like that. I can say something like this, using, and I want to have my namespace, so COMP123, there it is. And if I can say dot, if I want, can I do dot program? No, but I can do this. What this does, it says, hey, now I have access to that namespace up here on the top. That means I can get rid of this. Look how it graded out. It means I don't need to do that. I can do something like this. Program dot output string will work. Okay. So I'm saying whenever I use a using statement, then I'm kind of accessing, you know, the name up here. Now, if I add the dot program in here as well, what if I try and do this dot program? Will it allow me to do it? And it says if I hover over, it says our using namespace directive can only be applied to namespaces. Program as a type, not a namespace. Consider using a static, using static directive instead. Right? So if I was to do something like this, let's try this out. Right? Notice how this goes away. This has a problem now, right? And what if I just did one of these? Does that work? Now that solves my problem. Don't worry about the syntax, guys and girls. It's just tricks to make it easier, right? You could have certainly put the namespace first, and then the name of the class, and then the name of the method, right? We can totally do that way as well. That's perfectly fine, and I would accept it for now, right? Okay, let's test this thing. How do I test it? I need my Test Explorer window to come up. Here's my Test Explorer. I'm going to pin this up, and I'm going to run all tests. Now, this test should fail. Remember, it's red, green, refactor. Here's red. Run all tests. It should fail, right? If it passes, we got a problem, right? Give it a second. Mine takes a little bit longer to do. Mine says test not run. Oh. Reference is 0. Test failed. That's good. Yay! That's what I wanted to do, right? Because it should say test failed, right? Test failed because it's got to fail first, and then it's got to pass after. It's got to fail because look, my enter username and enter name doesn't make any sense, right? It should fail like this. Remember, fail first, then pass. Okay, let's make it pass. I know what I need to look at is this, my output string, enter username. By the way, I want to make it so that it matches up with what I'm entering up here, enter username with exact syntax. This right here is what you should do. Copy it, and make sure that this one is what I'm looking for, and this one here matches that one. I know it sounds silly, but that's what it's got to be, right? Why? Because this is passing through, one test is passing through the others, right? It's testing to see that this method works as expected. Now, this is a very simple test. It's always going to work because output and the return are the same, right? Let's check this out and make it run again. I'm going to run all. It's going to run the test. Up here, you can see this little bar moving up here. It's running the test, right? It should pass now if we're right, because I make it pass, right? I made these the same, right? So we should pass the test. It's going to check it out now. Slowly, slowly, it's going to do it. It's going to take. It's just taking way longer than normal, by the way. Usually, it like runs the test like 2 seconds, right? So give it a sec to finish this testing. Mine's just taking long because it's got to build. Sometimes what happens is you got to build. That's why it's taking so long. I haven't actually run my regular test first, right? And it failed again. Now I can always test to see what. Oh no, it's still running. It's still running. Oh, it passed. Look, see, check mark. Now it's going to return here passed. Test means this little check mark here, and it's still kind of updating this Test Explorer window. It means it passed. Okay, I'll wait to this. Oh, it's almost there. Wow, am I ever slow today? Passed, right? It normally takes like 2 seconds, not like 16 milliseconds, which is way too, like, that's how slow it is. This is good. That means that my test passed. Okay, so red, green, refactor before we stop for the day. And I also have to do some other commenting here, right? And I also have to update my GitHub because I've changed my original criteria, right? So some changes I have to make, right? Lots of little things. Well, how do I refactor? If I go back here, is there something that I could refactor here in my test? Well, first of all, my test passed, and I added a test. So let's add that into my GitHub. So I'm going to go to Team Explorer. I'm going to pin this up for a second. I'm going to go to Home. I'm going to go to Changes. And you know what? Before I make a change, I'm going to go right up to the top of my program.cs, right? And up here, I'm going to say version 0.5, added unit test, added lesson 1 unit test. That's what I did, right? I'm going to take the same comment right here, right? I'm going to put it up here in my thing, and notice there's a bunch of changes happening. I'm going to basically, capture all these changes in one, and click Commit All. Save everything. That's important. And the other thing I want to do is, now that I've saved everything, is I want to keep working. I don't want to push to GitHub right away. Let's keep working to show you that it can push multiple changes, right? In this particular one here, I want to add some comments. Well, this is my test class and so on, and my test everything else. I don't want to spend too much time here because I want to show you one thing where I want to refactor it. But here I want to type in my class. This is just comments, right? So this is going to be my test class. So @class is equal to lesson 1, should be the same name, lesson 1, unit test. And this, as a description, this class is used to test the lesson 1 project, right? Very simple, but it makes sense, right? So you can see what this thing is for, right? It's for development purposes only. I can put that in there too. It's for used for development only, right? I could put out other details here. I could put my name on this particular thing as well. I don't have time right now because we're running out of time, but I would probably put the same kind of comment header as the top, author, blah, 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 date modified, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff again, because the unit test could have multiple iterations. I could have different versions of my unit test. As I continue to add additional methods, I'm going to add a method to test the methods, right? Okay, and this output string would also be something that I'm testing, right? So I could do something like this, right? And say something like unit test for output string to console method of the program class, right? That's what this thing does. This is a method, @method. And I want to take this whole thing, copy it. It doesn't require any parameters for this one, right? Here's my test method, and it's very simple, some simple coding here, what I'm doing. Notice I have a range, act, and assert. These are also comments. I would ask you to put them in every time. If you're going to do unit test, put range, act, and assert. It's gonna reiterate that in your head, so you don't forget the 3 steps you have to make, right? Okay. I'm going to save that, and then I want to refactor, right? So I'm kind of doing a couple things at once here. Well, look, this is kind of very silly, right? I've got all these lines of code, right? And I want to refactor it, and so that there's one line of code. How can I make? This is a test question for those developers out there. Let's see if you guys know. How do I make all these lines of code into one line? Is there a way? I could do it, but that doesn't really do it. So basically, I'm testing to see if has new line, right? If has new line is true, then I want to add. I can kind of make this change here. I can make it so that it's only one line. I can use something called the ternary operator, right? Now, if it's ternary operator, it means that I can say if has new line is true, then do this. Otherwise, do this, right? That's what I'm testing. But I can do it in one line. Let me just do it so that you can see what it looks like. It looks like this. Has new line, question mark. If has new line is true, then do this. Console.writeLine. Bear with me. Else do console.write. That's usually the ternary operator. The problem with this one is, I'm just standing it up here. It says parameter new line is a variable, but is used like a type, right? Has new line, right? You're testing to see if has new line is true. If that's equal to true, that's the test, right? If has new line is equal to true, which is coming from here, right? And you're gonna have to be very careful about how this is. If this is the test, this is the condition, has new line is equal to true, right? If it's true, then do this. If it's false, then do this. But the ternary operator, the problem with this is I'm getting some other issues here, right? The problem with this one is that these are, I'm calling methods inside this area here, and that's not what I want, right? What I really want is to set my output to the new line character or not, right? So what I want to say, if has new line, then I want to put the new line character, which is \n, right, or nothing if it's not, right? And also, the other thing is, as I start refactoring, right, when I'm testing the new line character, I want to assign this somewhere, right? I want to assign the new line character to something else. So I want to say something like this. Maybe it's a string, and I'll call it, add addition, right? Notice how this works now. I don't want to really say addition. What I want to say is, do I add the string a new line character or not? Follow me what I'm doing. This is kind of crazy, but I'm refactoring. I'm trying to cut it down to 1 or 2 lines, right? Instead of like 6 lines, right? So how do I do this? It's not an addition. It's almost like a suffix string, right? And I want to kill all this, right? Kill all this. My string is a suffix string, and I'm going to do something like this. My output string, right? I want to console.write only, right, with my output string, right, plus my suffix string. Okay, now you're going to say, what the hell? How did I do that, and what does this mean? Okay, my suffix string is going to be either a new line character or nothing. So if I say has a new line, I'm going to append this new line character to my output string. If otherwise, I'm going to append nothing. That's what it does. So 2 lines take care of 6. Refactoring. Let's see if it works. We got to make a test now. Red, green, refactor. Let's test again, and then we'll see what happens, right? So if this doesn't work, we're in trouble, right? Let's see how it goes. So we're going to run our, first of all, I got to build. One thing to note is you should always build your program first. So build my solution. If it doesn't give you any problems, this is good, all right? Next thing is when you go here, I want to run my test again. So run all. So I'm going to go through, run my test, check, and see if it passes. And guess what? It's looking like it's going to pass. It's looking like it's going to pass. Passed, right? So this is what I'm talking about. That's how, whenever you make a change, when you refactor, you test again to make sure that the output is the same. Now we can actually test to see if it works. If I go Control, if I go here, and if I go Control F5 to see if it works, enter username is working, right? It works, right? It still works the same way. My program still works. This is a very long way of doing things. But guess what I've done here? I've changed something. So what am I putting in number 6? Refactored. What did I change? I refactored this line, this thing here, right here, right? That's what I did. So refactoring is the process of changing a method, right, as an example, or something else, or a method or a class, right? That's all I've done here. I've refactored. I've changed a method or a class to make it more efficient. What is this thing called? You should have learned this in COMP100. I'm sorry to say. It's called the ternary operator. I'm going to make a comment here as well. Refactored using the ternary operator. All right, take a look at that. Look it up on Google. It allows you to use. It tests if new line is true. Has new line is true. If it's true, anything after the question mark, it does this. If it's false, anything after the colon, it does this. Instead of doing if, else, you can replace a simple if and else with the ternary operator, which is way more efficient. Anything after the question mark is true, true result, right? So if this is true, take this part and add and put it into suffix string. If it's false, take this part and put it into suffix string. If it's true, do this one. If it's false, do this one. So assign either this one or this one to suffix string. That's what it's doing. Let's update to GitHub, and then you guys can go. Please remember that your lab 1 is due tonight, right? I have to keep talking while I'm doing this. And next week, when we get together on Friday, we're going to have a little quiz. Notice I have 2 changes here. I'm going to make a commit that says refactored, the same thing we put up here really quickly. Bear with me for one more second, guys and girls. Refactored output string to console, commit all, and now I'm going to sync both. I'm going to go sync, and I'm going to click, see that there's two commits. I'm going to push both those commits up into the cloud. Okay, they're done. Questions before we depart for the day? I know I'm running about 5 minutes after. Anybody? Okay, is it a specific question that I can handle, or can I see you after? After, anyone else? Okay, after. Guys, thank you so much, and girls, I'll see you next week. All right, thank you.